Fern is from the war-torn southern lands. Commander Rivale of the Shadow Warriors is from the southern lands. Denken mention of a turbulent era that seemed to leave a scar on humanity. The great mage Minas the Witch brought endless war to the southern lands and was accused of high treason. What does all the lore in Frieren that concerns these southern lands involve? War. More specifically, magic that has to do with war, like Minas the Witch blowing up an entire town just from collateral damage. And there has yet to be mention of a demon causing these issues in the south, so that means most of the issues that occur in the southern lands are by humans versus humans. As it stands, as of chapter 147, the biggest mystery in the Frieren Manga is who has the clairvoyant ability to predict and secure the death of the great mage from the era of Mythic. Spoiler warning, but it's a little bit too late, so you're locked in. And before we can continue, it's another day in the Frieren Manga hiatus. Yamada Kanehito and Abe Tsukasa are having a last supper because they know what will happen to the great mage Serie, the Beat Goddess. Everyone has seen the script except us fans, including Serie and the guy guarding the gate to Kanehito's script, and it ends with everyone. It's safe to say that our earliest impressions of the southern lands were not good when Frieren went to visit Old Man Hyther before the waterworks drowned us in wholesome misery. Her name is Fern. She's a war orphan from the southern lands. In the beginning, this is just the start of the lore and world building in the Frieren world. What we start to realize is that Frieren's adventure starts in the central lands as she slowly makes her way north to Oriol to see her master, the great mage Flamme Spirit, to get answers for what questions she seeks about humanity. As Frieren accepts Fern as an apprentice, accepts Isaac's request to pick up his apprentice in Stark, and eventually recruits Goatee Priest twice to join their adventure. The more and more Kanehito reveals about the southern lands until the Foundation Festival arc officially begins in chapter 126, where the southern lands becomes a central component of how the entire plot will unravel. I guess it's important to first address why the southern lands have become such an important topic of discussion, the mysteries that need to unravel, and then work our way back to everything that has been mentioned. In regards to this part of the continent that the Empire seemed to have the least influence over as the unified empire began to shrink. The entire Foundation Festival storyline revolves around an assassination attempt of Dashi no Megami. Arriving at the Empire's capital, one of the Continental Magic Association's first-class mage in Lineal is undercover and likely Kanona of the Magic Special Forces. She confirmed an assassination attempt will be held at a festival ball, where Flamme's legacy of being the catalyst to provide magic to the world, including training the first Imperial mages, is being celebrated. The people that are trying to assassinate Serie are called the Shadow Warriors, a now supposed defunct organization that disbanded 16 years prior is still operating as Phantoms. They are led by commanders that have significant authority to make decisions that the Emperor himself isn't even aware of due to the secrecy of the organization and the power they wield in the shadows. It's easy to see why this entire story basically becomes a Detective Conan murder mystery. So how does this tie into the southern lands? Commander Rivale, Lo of the Shadow Warriors, is from the southern lands, and he might just be the one to yeet the Beat Goddess. Unfortunately for Serie fans, this has become our reality as she reveals her fate from all of her visions. In chapter 144 and chapter 145, Serie discloses her last prophetic dream to the Emperor before the festival ball begins. It is basically a randomized prophecy of the future where Serie can live out scenarios of the future until the day she gets yeet. This is where clairvoyance and the southern lands will forever be synonymous with each other. As Serie explains, that spells that allow you to see the future have limitations and tend to be imperfect. There has only been one person that has ever perfectly managed to turn a prediction into reality. And you've guessed it, guys. It is the hero of the South. We can assume that prediction is the hero's party's 10-year adventure to defeat the Demon King. She further explains that clairvoyant people usually get themselves killed because of arrogance, because of being able to see the future, or it's because someone else is clairvoyant as well. We've already witnessed a clairvoyant person fight against another clairvoyant person in Schlatt the Omniscient, who can see up to 1,000 years into the future, along with the other 7 demon sages of destruction. In almost all of Serie's prophetic dreams, she gets yeeted. She was unable to detect mana, so it's either a warrior or someone that possesses skills that far exceed what should exist in this era. If you guys want my ultimate breakdown about Serie's death and clairvoyance, please check out all of my Foundation Festival arc videos. So skipping ahead a little further, when Serie explains where clairvoyance comes from. Yes, most clairvoyant abilities come from the Southern Lands, and specifically from a clan that went extinct during the Southern Land Wars. They begin to discuss who could be from these Southern Lands, and this is a part of that murder mystery that this arc is built on. Captain Freyza of the Magic Special Forces distinctly looks northern. That gives us a foundation for what a Southern Lander would not look like. The 3 characters we know for a fact that are from the Southern Lands are Fern, the hero of the South, and now Commander Reve, aka Helt of the Shadow Warriors. I guess 4 if you're gonna count Lernen too, who was the strongest Southern Land warrior during his time. Now this puts the entire fandom on a wild goose chase to decipher every physical characteristic possible to see who looks like that, or that, or that. Loffen in the first class mage exam uses an ability called Jillwit. It's a folk spell that belongs to a mountain tribe in the Southern Lands that allow you to move at a high speed. This is important because 1, it could explain how someone could be fast enough to yeet Serie, and 2, Loffen could be someone to help track down what a Southern Lander looks like. There are 2 other characters we know of that are gingers, like Kane, but her origins are unknown, and we all know of the main ginger in this entire show, the Great Mage Flamme. I actually have a video somewhere talking about how Flamme could have clairvoyance of some kind. He did predict that Frieren would eventually seek her out. Or it's just intuition, because we all know Frieren is just a clueless girl. Make that 3 gingers, as Edel is one of the best hypnosis users. Her rare expertise to invade and read the minds of demons feels like it would be some kind of a derivative of a clairvoyant ability. The biggest concern now becomes if Commander Reve would be the one to actually yeet Serie. He has the same hair color as the hero of the South. It could just be a red herring because he always describes himself as a pawn in this entire quest to extinguish all magic from the world. That's the plot, guys. He wants humans and demons alike to lose their mana and rid the world of magic. The laws of the world, rewritten in the time of myth, shall return to how they once were. This is why Commander Louvre is just a pawn, and further fuels the likelihood that he isn't acting alone, because achieving such a feat would have to involve much more than himself. For the story purposes of the Foundation Festival arc, we need to find if there are possible other Southern Landers who could have clairvoyance, which leads to many other videos I've made discussing who that could be. Now let's discuss everything we know about the Southern Lands and how that might reveal something major we haven't thought of yet. In chapter 53, in Frieren and Serie's flashback, when Frieren delivered Flamme's will to Serie, there is actually a map that showed the entire continent and what part of the land the Empire claimed 1,000 years ago. The anime gives us a little bit more detail with some of the names. What do you guys notice about the Empire during this time? It's not clear whether the unified empire was at its peak here or if it was already deteriorating at this point. One thing is 100% fact, in that the Great War against humans over coexistence was already occurring, and that the empire will be declining further. In the north, we have the Demon King Castle that includes much of his army, That makes sense why the Empire hasn't conquered that part of the land. In the south is where all the juicy mystery is that the Foundation Festival arc is currently expounding on. One can assume that the Empire faced a lot of resistance from the people of the south. These things usually just come down to freedom and power, right? As we learn from Helt's backstory that demons were mainly an issue in the north, while the southern lands have mostly been issues amongst humans. However, there is something kind of contradictory about what we know about the southern lands, and it stems from Solitar doing her usual yapping when she took down the Great Barrier over the Golden Land. She mentions all of humanity's magical knowledge that helped erect that Great Barrier put up by the Continental Magic Association from the southern lands to protect the magic circle from the Com clan, who specialize in sealing demons. What's confusing about this statement? If the demon sphere of influence is far from the southern lands, why in the hell is there an entire clan there that specializes in sealing demons? The easy answer to this question is the fact that demons still do exist somewhat in the southern lands, and probably all over the continent, but once again, an entire clan dedicated to something that is rarely an issue feels quite contradictory for where your R&D should be going. You would think the focus would be on fighting other humans, which takes me to something Denken mentioned in chapter 100 of a turbulent era. This is the era where for 50 years, Zoltrak was improved to the point of being a foundational killing magic of humanity. It both makes sense for those in the north, like the Empire, to improve this because of its effectiveness against demons, and in the south, it is also just as effective in combating other humans. It is likely the most common spell that yeets other humans by humans. As Solitar stated, Qual would be delighted at the irony of his perfected spell being used to eliminate humanity from within. We can connect the Sutherland Wars being tied to the current Governor General of the Lordbeer Domain in Low, an outsider that gained reputation and status from covert operations in the southern lands. It's currently unknown as to what is happening in the southern lands in terms of warfare. When Fern was just a toddler about 15 years prior, it was still a place where the lands were ravaged. This is where the lore of the Great Mage Minas the Witch provides further detail of how destructive the war was in the southern lands in the time period where she apparently caused much chaos. Of the Shadow Warriors explains that 20 years ago, Minas the Witch, who brought endless war to the southern lands and was accused of high treason, was defeated by a nameless warrior from a small remote region. The image shows what looks like to be a dead Minas the Witch, but like with a lot of lore in Frieren, it is followed up by rumors of something else. That something else is the possibility that the fight against Minas ended in a draw, and the warrior that defeated her might not even be Commander Louvre, which does what again? Fuels the speculation about another southern lander that has clairvoyance, the same one that is trying to yeet the great mage Serie, the big goddess. In chapter 147, it continues on with the lore of the great mage Minas the Witch, one of the last three of the great mages. Apparently, the magic used for war in the southern lands no longer was under the control of humans, meaning Minas, elves, or other demons are somehow behind the southern land wars. Sorry if the audio is a little bit off. I actually wanted to add this to the video because the question popped in my head as I was editing. There was somewhat a slight contradiction to the Hero of the South's character. The southern lands mostly consist of human on human violence, which would mean the Hero of the South must have been fighting too, right? He's obviously been fighting demons and making his way all the way north. It makes sense because even though demons are not the main concern in the South, they clearly could become one at any point if the Empire ultimately falls. We know that the strongest hero of the South after the Hero's Party defeated the Demon King was Lyra, due to Commander Rave's backstory, which also means he's been fighting other humans as well, or something else like the Great Mage Minas the Witch. The question I'm trying to propose is, which side of the war are the heroes fighting for? How did the hero of the South and Lyra know who to fight? Did they fight against both sides? That is where you can insert all the theories like demon manipulation from behind the scenes, people like Commander Reve that want to eliminate magic, and the one that makes the most sense is the Great Mage Minas' involvement in the Southernland Wars, where Helt says that magic was no longer in the hands of humans. There is a bigger picture clash of ideology here that has plagued the South, and what they are fighting to the death over could be hinted by what Commander Reve wants: to eliminate all magic from the world. That might be where the Great Mage Minas the Witch or another third party comes into play, because it clearly states that an elf who looks like Minas here has taken over their magic. But that pretty much covers most of the major points and mentions about the Southern Lands. So let me know what you guys think about what happened during this turbulent era, and let me know if I missed something that was important about the Southern Lands. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. See you guys on the next video.